across to our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, who is joining me live from New Delhi. Siddhant, without any clarification on the rebuttal that Donald Trump drew from India regarding mediation on Kashmir, which he claimed was a request made to him by Prime Minister Modi, Trump has done it again. What do we make of these comments?
Well, it looks like a deja vu. It looks like a repetition of what happened 10 days ago when US President spoke on Kashmir while sitting next to the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan. That time also India had strongly reacted, and in the parliament we know that the External Affairs Minister Jaishankar spoke categorically refuting what the Americans have been saying. The American president said that a mediation request came from the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi when both the leaders met on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Osaka. Today also a repetition of that thing happened. There was a comment by the US President second time, and again we saw rebuttal by the Indian government, by the Foreign Affairs Minister, who met with the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Well, this meeting, the meeting between Mike Pompeo and Jaishankar was expected to be the big meeting, a meeting in which things can be resolved in the aftermath of those comments. But it has somehow now become a sideline story to the larger story, which is the comments coming from the US President. But we know that the US President has a tendency of making deals, and this could be part of his grand strategy of making deals with India, whether it's the issue of trade, something that the American President has been very vocal on, calling India a tariff king, or whether it's other issues as well. We also know that there are convergences as well, like Indo-Pacific and other areas. Both consider each other as a strategic ally, especially with the rise of an aggressive China, and that is why this concept has been formulated by New Delhi and Washington. But given the fact that these comments coming from Washington is something that is going to irk New Delhi a lot, and when it comes to territorial sovereignty, India is very, very not only sensitive, but also would not like these comments to be coming out, whether it's from Washington or Beijing. Remember, India hasn't joined CPEC for a single reason, that it passes through a region which is illegally occupied by the Pakistanis.
Absolutely. It already has irked India. No wonder it has drawn comments coming in from our foreign minister, where Dr. S. Jaishankar has already clarified that that the issue of Kashmir is a bilateral one. This is the second time that India has reiterated its stance. Let's also get in some perspective from Professor Brahmachalani. He is the Professor of Strategic Studies at the Center for Policy Research. He joins us live at this moment from New Delhi. Very warm welcome to you, Professor. Professor, how do you analyze the timing of these comments, considering the pull aside has just taken place between Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar and US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo at the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meet in Bangkok?
There are two important things here. First, as we all know, Kashmir mediation offer is a red rag to the Indian bull. So no US politician would seek to upset relations with India by flaunting this red rag of Kashmir mediation. Yet for the second time, Trump has made that Kashmir mediation offer. He in fact has renewed that earlier offer of his. And it's not a coincidence that he has been doing this after meeting with the Pakistani Prime Minister. Because while the US wants Pakistan to help the US in Afghanistan so that US forces can leave Afghanistan by concluding a deal with the Afghan Taliban, which is an ISI-sponsored militia, the Pakistanis, on the other hand, want a deal. The deal that the Pakistanis want is that in return for Pakistani cooperation in Afghanistan, the Americans will seek to play a role in India-Pakistan issues, including in the Kashmir dispute. So that's the deal the Pakistanis are pushing, and therefore it's not a coincidence that after meeting with Imran Khan, Trump twice has made this Kashmir mediation offer.
All right. Very rightly said. This seems to be quite like a barter between the United States and Pakistan. But, Professor, the last time Trump made the comments during his meeting with Pak's Prime Minister Imran Khan, White House was quick in doing damage control by omitting the mention of Kashmir in its press release. Do you see a divide between Trump's stand on Kashmir and his administration? Do you think Secretary Pompeo would dare to differ?
Trump is the president. He makes the policy. He drives the approach toward India and Pakistan. And as you noticed from his latest comments, he's again re-hyphenating India and Pakistan. He's also, drawing a equivalence between Imran Khan and Narendra Modi. He's praising them in the same breath. He's calling them fantastic people, Khan and Modi.
Right.
I don't think Modi will like that. And certainly the Indians do not like this reaffirmation of India with Pakistan. So whatever Trump, the dumb, is doing, he's undercutting U.S. policy objectives vis-a-vis India. But let's not forget that his comments are to be seen in a larger framework. For example, in recent days, the U.S. has renewed military assistance to Pakistan. The amount might be small, $125 million, but the fact that U.S. is reopening the tap of military aid to Pakistan is symbolically very important, and for India, strategically very significant.
We're going to come to that, Professor. Now, despite the snub, Donald Trump has reiterated the offer. Why this obstinate persistence on an issue which India has already highlighted is a bilateral matter as per the Shimla Agreement and Lahore Declaration?
Well, first, I think India should not be calling Kashmir a bilateral issue. It is not a bilateral issue at all. The only issue, as far as India is concerned, is the return of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This has been the government of India's official stance in Parliament. So to say that India, as the External Affairs Ministry is saying repeatedly, that Kashmir is a bilateral issue, that India will deal with Kashmir only with Pakistan, that lends respectability to Pakistani claims on Indian Kashmir. We should stop saying that Kashmir is a bilateral issue. There is no issue on Kashmir other than the Pakistani occupation of 1/3 of the original state of Jammu and Kashmir and India's determination to reclaim their occupied territory.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point that you made, Professor, that, Kashmir is not the issue which is up for bilateral talks, but it is the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Now, like China trade talks, Iran's oil issue, or even denuclearization of North Korea, is the change in Trump's stance towards Kashmir just one of his desperate deal-making attempts in a bid to be re-elected as the president?
Well, Trump is doing a number of things which may not help him in the election, because the American presidential election is not fought on foreign policy issues. I think the only issue that might impinge on his re-election prospects is if his trade war with China were to hobble U.S. economic growth. The latest threat of renewed tariffs, of greater tariffs or in fact, his threat to expand tariffs to more Chinese goods from September 1st had a very significant impact on the American stock market yesterday. The stock market fell on the news that Trump is going to levy new tariffs on additional Chinese exports to the U.S. Now, if that issue continues and if the U.S. economic growth is hobbled, then certainly that could impinge on Trump's re-election prospects. But South Asia, India, Pakistan, Kashmir, whether it's Afghanistan or even Iran issue, are not going to directly affect Trump's re-election prospects.
All right. Staying with the timing of his comments, I'm also going to bring in our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant, who's also joining us at this moment. Siddhant, how do you view this entire meeting that has already taken place in the backdrop of Trump's comments? Because let's not forget, the Indian Prime Minister is also all set to make a visit to the United States in September. Today's meeting, of course, was supposed to be a precursor. Do you see this having an impact, the entire scenario, on Prime Minister Modi's visit?
Well, this meeting which took place in Bangkok has become a sideshow to the comments by the US President. But there are two occasions where the Indian Prime Minister may meet US President Donald Trump. One, of course, is in this month itself. By the end of this month, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be going to France for the G7 summit. A meet can happen there. And then, of course, the Prime Minister's visit to United States. He will be going to New York and Texas at New York at the United Nations General Assembly. He will be speaking at the UN. Second time he will be speaking since 2014. He can give ideas. The last time he spoke on Yoga Day. But a meeting with Donald Trump, of course, will be focusing on his comments on Kashmir, because this is something that New Delhi has taken strongly and is expected to again take up strongly, despite the tweet made by the External Affairs Minister on Kashmir, clearly using the word clearly. That's the most important word in that tweet, clarifying that this entire Kashmir issue is a bilateral issue and no third-party mediation will be allowed. This is something that has been the policy of the Indian government and will remain the policy of the Indian government. So this is the entire controversy that has been generated by the US President is going to stay here for a long time now, given the fact that the US President has spoken for the second time. The first time it could have been dismissed as just a mistake or the being Trump, his usual trademark way of dealing or saying about things. But this time around, it's going to be taken strongly by New Delhi.
Right. Thank you so much, Siddhant, for bringing us all those details and giving us the latest coming in from the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting also. Let me go back to Professor Brahmachalani. Professor, do you notice that while there's been much talking coming in from Donald Trump, there has been a stoic silence being maintained by the Indian Prime Minister? Do you think his comments are going to impact the Indian Prime Minister's upcoming visit to the United States in September?
I think after the first set of comments by Trump, Modi wisely decided not to join the issue, because he did not want to embarrass Trump, and he also wants to retain room for continuing a friendly relationship with Trump. But now that Trump has renewed his Kashmir mediation offer and he has sought to reaffinate India and Pakistan, and to make matters worse, the U.S. has reopened the spigot of U.S. military aid to Pakistan. And on top of that, the U.S. is mounting pressure on India on multiple fronts. For example, it is wielding the threat of opening a Section 301 investigation against India if trade-related disputes are not resolved between New Delhi and Washington. And then the U.S. sanctions have cut off Iranian oil supply to India.
Right.
The U.S. is trying to take Iran's place as a major oil supplier to India. But the U.S. crude oil price is much higher than the price that Iran was offering India. So India's oil import bill has shot up. So all these pressures on India might compel Modi to finally speak up.
All right, there's much that has already taken place, and of course a change in stance when it comes to the United States South Asian policy. And thank you so much for your perspective, Professor Brahmachalani. Much has been contributed by you today in this discussion.